Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Reese Designs. Today I figured to upload a video, kind of explain my settings for video rendering as well as kind of bogging down file size when you create or render out a video. Because a lot of times when you use these settings, and even settings that are above this, you'll have a high file size, meaning that a few gigabytes, stuff like that. And it's not really viable to upload to YouTube with a high file size because they're going to compress it. And if you don't have your settings proper, you're going to have a really bad result. Another thing to keep in mind is if you upload at 1080 instead of 1440p, unless you're a channel that gets a lot of views on like basically all your videos, they're going to give you the AVC1 codec. And that's not really great quality when it comes to like gaming or fast moving objects. You see a lot of pixelation. Now, what you're trying to do is get YouTube to render your video with the, I believe it's the VP09 codec. That's the best codec that you can get right now. And the way to force YouTube to render your videos in that sense or compress them to that is following these settings right here. You at least have to have a 1440p video. It's just the way it is. I've tried it with everything else, but it just doesn't fly. So again, unless you're a big YouTube channel where you get like hundreds of thousands of views or more, they're not going to change the codec for you, even on 1080p videos. So right here we can see 2560 for width, 1440 for height. I have 60 frames per second. And down here I have the full resolution rendering quality to the best. Motion blur type Gaussian. I mean, there's really not much else you can pick from. I mean, you could, but this has always been good to me. Deinterlace method, none, and I disable resample because basically what that does is it sort of like builds off of this, or makes another layer of like blur and motion. So anything like in games where you see you move around and it does really quick motion, it will do that kind of blur effect, and you don't want that because at any given time you could add that later, but this is on by default. So you want to make sure it's either smart sample or force resample. It's one of the two, but you want to make sure that's disabled. Also down here, you want to make sure that this is checked. Start all new projects with these settings. This way, every project you bring in will start off with this. Now up here, you see this is named 1440p YouTube 2K 60 frames per second. This is a preset that I've made and saved myself. So one of the first things you want to do before messing with any of this is you want to make sure that you name whatever pops up here first. It could be like a default or something. You want to name it something that you're going to remember and save it. So this way, any changes you make, it will save to this instead of like a default setting, which can be in the pain in the butt if you don't know what you did. Now in audio, I bring it up to 48,000 for the sample rate. Resample and stretch quality, I think, is usually on best, but if not, bring it up to that. And yeah, so that's pretty much that. I think you have to really worry about anything else. So I'm just going to put cancel because that was going to make me change it to a new project. So over here, another thing you want to kind of keep in mind, in case you haven't done this or for some reason you still see like a motion blur when you don't intend for it, you want to go over to switches and you want to click on all your videos or video clips and make sure that you click disable resample. Because what happens is, again, like I said, you have a lot of motion blur or resampling that kind of makes your video not look as crisp as it could be. So I make sure that all my clips are highlighted. And this is the same practice that I use if I do any effects or transitions or things like that. I want to make sure all of them are selected. So if I do like sharpening or color correction or color grading, they're done to every single clip at once. Because sometimes, when you have a lot of cuts and you're going across and you don't do this, you have to drag and drop and edit for each one. Okay, you can save presets obviously, but you still have to select each one and it's a pain in the butt. So you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. Now another thing is over here to render as. And sometimes I just put a picture in here to set up these settings and then I continue on with my project with the real clips or videos. Because you can't really do this without something not being in the timeline. Now I have a lot of favorites here. Now some of these were ones that I used that didn't work, but these two right here are the ones that I actually use. And you'd basically, let's say that I didn't have this on, right? Let's take this off. Now you see all different types over here, and you're probably thinking, well, which one should I use? I see a lot of people say this and say that. Well, this is what I go by. I go to and now it's either Sony or MAGIX, depending on which version of Vegas Pro you have. It went from Sony to MAGIX. So this is the one you want to pick, the MAGIX AVC AAC MP4. And you would basically take this and customize template. That's how I was able to get the template that I already have. So what's going to happen is it's going to open up kind of a sort of the same dialog menu, but it's not exactly the same. Again, you want to make sure this matches your project settings. Profile have on high. Now frame rate, it's 59.94, and even though you try to put 60, I notice it just keeps changing back to this. It's just something that this program does. Also, constant bit rate, I have to 50,000. I know a lot of people are probably thinking, well, that's way too high. Well, trust me, after I get done with this and go on to the next part of this video, or the next two parts, you're going to see why you want to do this. It's sort of like, let's say you're making a graphic in Photoshop, okay? And you know you're going to bog it down or resize it, right? But what you kind of want to do is get the highest quality picture possible, and then you could do whatever edits from there, like lowering the resolution and stuff like that. But if you go and you pick a low resolution picture and then try to upscale it, it looks like crap. So you want to keep in mind that something that is very high quality is probably the best place to start when doing editing, and especially when you're downscaling, because it's going to look a heck of a lot nicer than just having a file of that size produced. You have something that's a higher scale and you sharpen it and things like that. It's going to just look more crisp and more professional when you start working with it and editing it and so forth. So that's what I would keep in mind, is just, see what works best for you. Now I have it on constant bit rate because all the videos that I pretty much use in this program are constantly at a higher bit rate. Now you can go to a lower one, you can do this, but what's going to happen in certain situations is that it's going to, peak and then drop, go up and down, up and down. Now a lot of people will say constant bit rate can do that too, but I've had more problems with variable bit rate than I have with constant. And it's because I plan ahead. I make sure that my videos that I bring in are going to have, either 60 frames per second or close to it. Now you can use 30 frames per second videos, but just keep in mind that it's not really going to look right in certain situations. You know what I mean? It's the same kind of idea of like higher quality, plan ahead, versus trying to take another file that's probably a little slower and then try to speed it up, because all it's doing is it's creating fake frames in between each frame to create 60 frames per second when it comes to like a 30 frame video. And it's sort of like the soap opera effect on some smart TVs out there. You'll see a show that's obviously running in either 24 or 30 frames per second, and then when you turn on the soap opera effect, it looks like it's running very smoothly. All it's doing is creating fake frames in between so that it will equal up to 60 frames a second. Now, another thing is you want to come over here, again, bit rate, sample rate. You want to make sure those are pretty much the same as your settings. One moment. The format's obviously going to be MP4. Now over here, video rendering quality, you want to make sure that this is set to best. And that's pretty much it. And again, this is the setting. I would edit this first, the name, and then I would save it. Now this will allow this to be selectable in the menu that I just showed you before. So let me do cancel. And what I would do after I found it is I would put a star next to it, so easily when I start the next project, I have all my favorites saved. That's it. Once these are saved, that's it. You're good. And you could always re-edit one and say, 2018 YouTube Super HD, and then put 2 next to it, or re-edit or something like that. So if you have one that's pretty nice, but you have the same settings, but a little bit of changes for another project, there you go. So that being said, obviously make sure you know where you're saving everything. Now this is a very small, obviously just pictures, right? But here it is, 59 megabytes. I guarantee you those are not 59 megabytes, but it's going to render that out. Now with normal files that are going to be up to like 10 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, sometimes people do gameplay videos that last an hour or two, right? Or you might do tutorials or 3D modeling on a live stream. And maybe you want to take that video and make it a higher quality, you know what I mean? Have a record of it, or even if it's not a live stream, it's just something that you want to have a high quality video of. Just make sure you know where it is, and I'm going to show you exactly what I do to drop the file size for all my videos and make sure that they upload to YouTube very quickly and process even faster. But before I do that, I do want to bring your attention to the recommended upload settings. So I'm going to bring this over real quick. Let me cancel out of this. So right here is where you're going to get all the information you need to be able to upload a video and not have YouTube basically butcher it, you know? So as long as you follow these guidelines to the best of your ability, because sometimes they'll have like options in it that you don't have. Some people have AMD GPUs, other people have NVIDIA, and that can have an effect. So open these up. All right, so it says right here, you can take the best one to upload would be MP4, no edit list, or the video might not get processed correctly. Not really sure what that means. Never had a problem though. Channel stereo or stereo plus 5.1. If you can handle this and it works fine for you, I would go with that. Sample rate, obviously, it can be a little higher if you want it to be. I just stick with 48. So progressive scan, no interlacing. That's a whole nother video. So if you want to find out what this means, you want to go and let's see. I know Linus Tech Tips has a video, or on one of his channels, that talk about the difference between progressive scan and interlacing. Meaning that if you ever heard the term 1080i or 1080p, there's a totally good reason for that. So when you watch that video, you have a better understanding. I pick high profile, consecutive B frames, and you find in your settings there will be one there. Make sure it's that. Not really sure what that means. So this, I'm guessing something else a part of that. Maybe I did something way back in the day. I just saved my settings a while ago. So variable bit rate. They do say to use this. And I haven't really had success using this. It must be something I'm doing wrong. Maybe other people can figure that out. But for me, I've always done constant bit rate. I know it can peak out, and I know if it does that and has issues, it's going to cause problems with the render. So I guess it's really just a balance of what you need to do versus what you can do and what you're trying to aim to do. So that being said, now we come down to the frame rates. Content should be encoded and uploaded in the same frame rate as it was recorded. And that's exactly what I was saying before. You want to make sure that your videos and your footage is set up to be edited in the same manner. Otherwise, you're going to start having issues with your video right off the bat. So again, common frame rates include 24, 25, 30, 48, 50, and 60 frames per second. Sometimes other places will do 120 and higher, but as of right now, it's pretty much up to just 60. Interlaced content should be deinterlaced before uploading. And again, watching that video from, a lot of people can explain it, but I found the one from Linus Tech Tips to be the most informative and straightforward. So once you learn about that, you'll understand why they say this. So now we're going to go down to the bit rate. And now this is something that everybody should know, especially if you're using programs like Open Broadcast Studio and you're recording video or gameplay. You want to make sure that you match this. And you also want to make sure that you keep in mind, this is the file size in megabits per second, or at least in the stream as well, that you want to aim for and what they will actually accept. If you go above this, it's kind of just wasting data and, it's just not going to work great. So here we are. You got the different settings here. So like I said before, you will get the AVC1 codec if you only upload in 1080. But if you upload in 1440p, you will get the VPN09 codec. I could be wrong. I can't. Oh, VP9. Here it is. So to get this, you need to upload this or higher. So to view new 4K uploads of 4K, use a browser device that supports VP9. See what I mean? That's very crisp, high quality video. So what I go for, video bitrate standard frame, so 24, 25, 30, that would be 16. Now, you don't have to go up to 50 like I was saying. 24 Mbps would be fine. I just like to have it way high quality as possible, and then I bring it down with Handbrake, which is another program I'm going to show you in a second. So I probably should just do it this way, but anyway, this is what you're aiming for 48, 50, or 60 frames per second. So you want to make sure that your bit size right here in Mbps is this or higher. Okay. Another one down here, like I said, there's all the other ones. Recommended video bit rates for HDR. So this is standard for some reason. I guess that's what it's standard definition. And these are high definition. So here it is, 30 Mbps would be perfect. So it's, 6 more than this. I ended up going to 40 or 50. Like I said, I like it a little higher quality. I could always bog down the file size later on. And down here, as you can see, these are the settings for bit rates for uploads. So this also will talk about aspect ratio, things like that. But this is basically what you go by to make sure that your video uploads properly and is processed properly. If you do this for them, they're going to still compress your video to a point, but it's not really going to have a huge impact. I mean, it's, again, just follow this and you should be all right. So now it's going to bring me to the next program, which will basically show you how you can bog down your video size so that even though you've picked higher data rates in your video and things like that, it will keep the quality best as possible. At least this is the settings that work perfectly for me. So here's Handbrake. Here's one of my other videos I've already uploaded that I use this for. And I have a few settings here already. Now there's some down here, but what I end up doing is just taking a template, just like in Sony Vegas, and I will edit it and save my own preset. So I have it for 1080 and I have it for 1440p. So right now for 1440p, I'll show you. So we got this web optimized. You want to make sure that's clicked on, MP4. All right, and these will show up after you kind of do a few changes here. Now this says dimensions like this, and the reason it's doing this here is because I changed them. So what I'm going to do is change it back to what I had, because I had to change this to save the next setting, and I haven't used Handbrake yet with these settings. So automatically, as you can see, it's changing it. Let's see about that. Yeah. All right. So the source, okay, that's what it is. The source was a little bit smaller because I was playing Killing Floor in 1080 instead of 1440p. So again, I made a little bit of a mistake of not having the exact same settings, but given how I record my video and the high quality is, I know how to upscale it to the next step pretty well. So it doesn't really have a large effect. But you just want to keep in mind, you don't want to jump up to like 4K using a 720p video. I mean, you could use a lot of upscale like techniques and keep detail in your video, but it's not going to look as good as you could have it if you recorded it in the exact same resolution and frame rate from the beginning. So there's that. Filters, deinterlace. A lot of people, say do this, it helps. I turned it off and I actually liked it with this on. So I do keep that there. Everything else is pretty much off. And the reason I don't do sharpen again is because I already did it in my other video. Now you can do it if you want, but again, just trial and error, see what settings work for you. But I would also do a lot of research first before you start messing around with it. And here we are with the codec. You want to make sure you have the H.264x264 codec. Now, unless you know what these other ones do, trust me, that's the best one you're going to be able to pick. And again, like I said, you want to also keep this in line with the file settings in Sony Vegas. So again, I'm kind of guilty of this, but I realize here with variable frame rate, it does work better than the constant frame rate. So I'm going to try and mess around with my own settings and see what's the best setups all across the board. But right now, this is what really works for me. Quality, I keep it around 22. The sweet spot, from what a lot of people are saying, is around 22 to about 18. Okay, so this is where I go. I go to 22. Now, this is only because I rendered it out a little quicker than before. But if I wanted to, I can go down to 20. So I'll probably end up doing that. I'm not going to render out one right now, but all the videos that I've uploaded in the past few days are from this. So they're really high quality, and they still have the VP9 codec because I uploaded it 1440p. Now down here, this is another setting that you want to be careful of, because if you make this go all the way down to like slow or whatever, it's going to take forever. And honestly, your file size will not be too much smaller than it is, meaning that it's going to try to keep the quality best as possible. But this is what I found to be the best setting for me, at least. These down here, auto and auto. Now over here, if you have multiple tracks on your video, like microphone and gameplay, sounds, and then maybe music, you'll have different tracks, right? So you want to make sure you pick the right one. Now this will be explained in other videos. At the moment here, it's pretty much just one. This is the one that you pick. This is what I'm going with right here. Bitrate 320 stereo. Okay, because if you, when it uploads to YouTube, they do drop it down, but at least if you have the audio to the highest quality, when it's bogged down, it's not going to sound awful, like garbling and stuff in the background. Subtitles, I don't really mess with that. And down here, usually everything's default, and the only thing you're going to change is reference frames to 4. Maximum B frames 2, that's another setting we had before, that's the same. So again, like I said, you want to make sure you have a lot of these settings either exactly or as close as possible to your original file. And down here, you want to make sure you know where you're going to export these when they're saved or done encoding. So I made a folder on my desktop. You know, obviously you can name it whatever you want, but I'll be able to see what it is. And that's pretty much it for this. You go up here and start encoding, and it'll take, you know, whatever time. But these settings right here will drop your file size at least 80%, and you will have a very crisp, clear video. And again, like in Sony Vegas, what I do is I add sharpen modifiers, I add color correction, things along those lines, so that when they actually go through these programs, they keep as much detail as possible. I mean, like cinematic quality. Now, this is something I've taught myself in the past like 2 months. Okay, so anybody can learn this. You just have to go and look for the right things. If you're not sure what to look up, just watch a lot of videos of these people and their videos. They will mention these terms, they'll mention these things, and then just write them down. Take a look, you know, online. Don't just go into one source though. Make sure you go anywhere you can to find out information. Even talk to people in forums or, you know, network, and find out what works best for them, and see based on your system and what video card you have, processor, stuff like that, what would work best for you. So again, that's pretty much what I do for the settings there. And, you know, a lot of times for my, you know, recording of gameplay or video online or stuff like that, if I need to record it, I use Open Broadcast Studio. I will be making another video kind of showcasing some good settings for that, and how to do different transitions between, if you're doing live streaming, how to do transitions quickly, how to use audio filters for your mic, so it kind of cancels out background music, sound, stuff like that, and also how to set up your audio so that if you're using a headset or a mic or just normal speakers, you want to make sure that's all set up so that it sounds good and it actually picks it up. Otherwise, you're going to have issues. But that will be another video. And for right now, I'm going to end it here. So I hope you guys learned a lot, and hit that like, subscribe button, share it with your friends, hit the little bell notification. And yeah, I appreciate all of you, and thanks for watching.